All right, we're on to chapter 3, how the masters obtain their wisdom. Records exist to be investigated by anyone who has an open mind and who can see and has brains enough to judge according to the preponderance of evidence, showing that the great seers of the ages have penetrated behind and beyond the veil of appearances, have gone behind that veil to the roots of things, have sent their souls deep into the womb of being, and have brought back knowledge therefrom. Wonderful indeed are the systems of thought that these great seers and sages of the ages have formulated in human language, touching every phase of the human being, systems which are so symmetrical, so profound in philosophical and scientific reach, that every fact that exists in human psychology finds its proper niche, its proper pigeonhole, so to say, its exact lodgment where it belongs. Picture a universe which is consistent throughout itself, an organic whole which is enlivened with a burning intelligence and a vital flow which never ceases because the universe is without frontiers, boundless, without a beginning, and without an end. Furthermore, the physical universe that we sense around us is but the outer veil or garment or sheath, the reflection of the invisible worlds behind the scenes. And what men call physical laws, the laws of physical nature, are but the reflection, the copy, to use a similar or a familiar expression, in our physical world of the willpower and of the vital essences of the spiritual beings who guide and control the universe and who fill full these invisible realms behind the physical universe that we see. Consequently, the universe, being thus an organic whole and strictly coordinated, can be interpreted. It is not a senseless and crazy dance of fortuitous-driven atoms. The universe, being thus subject to law and order, can be expressed in human formulation so far as its structure and operations go, as a system of thought which human beings can understand. Great intellects, titanic spiritual seers, have sent their consciousness behind the veils of the outward, seeming deep into the womb of invisible nature, and have brought back what they have seen, and have formulated their knowledge into a grand system of thought. The system of thought we call today Theosophy, or we today call Theosophy. It is the mother of all the great religions and the philosophies of the past time, and will be so of those of the future, for this reason, that every one of these other great systems of thought has been founded upon the teachings of some great spiritual seer and sage. Such enlightened beings have reached this state of spiritual elevation by becoming more fully what they are within themselves, by evolving forth what is within, for evolution is the bringing out, the unfolding, the unwrapping, what the evolving entity has in the core of its being. There can be no other evolution. A thing cannot become that which it is not in its inmost. No entity can bring forth something which is not locked up within, lying latent it may be for the time being. So what then is Theosophy? It is the formulated system of natural religion, philosophy, science, embracing the verities of infinite nature and teaching, therefore, of the structure, operations, and laws of nature as they have been and are visioned, seen, experienced, witnessed by all the great sages and seers of the past and present. All of them have examined the indelible records of the astral light which contain the portrayal of all evolution from the very dawn of time, and have, through an ascending series of initiations, have sent the percipient part of themselves, the seeing part, the visioning part, the thinking part, the intuitive part, the self-conscious part behind the veil of the outward seeming of nature which surrounds us. They have gone behind the veil into new and marvelous realms of being, and there themselves at first hand have quaffed of the waters of truth. Drinking of those sublime Parian springs, they bring back to their fellow men and formulate in human tongue what they themselves have seen and have found. And these various formulations were, in past ages, the original sources of the ancient philosophies and religions. All these great sages and seers have seen the same verities, have found the same truths in the invisible spheres of being, and having formulated this same body of truths which they had discovered, it is clear that behind all the literatures, within all literatures, under the words, in the words, behind the words, you will find one fundamental system of natural scientific religio-philosophy. A very interesting chapter. I wouldn't make any claims as to the future of theosophy or what it would be called, but certainly the synthesis of science, religion, and philosophy is a culminating type of event where it's constantly bringing together all of the material into one understanding. So yeah, whatever we want to call that, right? It's just it really is important, and it's the way of the future, especially in this information age where we can do this more or less been relatively easy, right? So, all right, teachings of the masters. What is the pathway? The pathway is you yourself. Therefore, the call from the teacher comes to you. Awake, my brother. Awake to the God within yourself, not outside, not in me, but in you, the Master Supreme. Where is the fountainhead of your understanding? Where arises the flame of your intelligence? What is the wellspring of love within you? Where is the sun of compassion and pity and self-forgetfulness and peace? All within you. That, therefore, is the path. And power, shall we talk of powers? Look at the powers that these great men had. See the works that they wrought, the deeds that they did, the teachings that they taught, and every one of them said unto his followers, come up higher, come up. All that I do, shall ye do likewise. Self-conquest, self-discipline, self-study, the study of the higher self, self-understanding, self-evolution, self-growth, there is the teaching. Forget the self in order that ye may find the self. A paradox, but how wondrous true. Forget the lower, circumscribed man of limited self, so that the consciousness of that self may expand into the fields of the universe, its native home. Expand your human consciousness so that it may become the consciousness of the God within you. Inner worlds. Furthermore, these wise men taught of the reality of inner and invisible worlds. They taught from what they themselves had experienced in the initiation chambers, taught not only because someone else had instructed them, but because they had been on the mystical adventure to these interior realms, and because they had been there and had seen and felt and contacted these realms, they knew and therefore could teach truth. How can a man really know anything at all which he himself has not been through. They taught that it is the inner worlds to which all the better part of man goes when he lays aside the physical body, the interior realms and planes and spheres of the cosmic life. They taught that the journey after death is made upwards through 9 other planes or spheres until the acme or top of the hierarchical ladder is reached, and then comes the return journey downwards through the same planes until the earth sphere is again entered upon. And thus a man is reborn, each time a little higher than before, let us hope, because there are certain cases of retrogression, with each new birth learning a little more and becoming somewhat more than he was before. For the root of each one of us is a divine being, and humanhood today is but a visible and imperfect manifestation in this world of gross substance of the powers and faculties that are locked up within. The real roots of things are in the invisible worlds. The real causes of all things lie there. Therefrom spring forth the entities that compose the variety of our physical world, and today ultra-modern scientific thinkers, and the greatest of them, are talking more or less vaguely but intuitively about our dimensions of space, instead of which phrase we, having the same idea although much more developed, speak about the superior worlds or realms or planes of space. Our evolutionary journey, existing in the very beginning of this present stage of cosmic evolution in the bosom of the super-spiritual source and root of all that is, leaving it as unconscious God sparks, we have passed through many existences and lives on various spiritual spheres, as also in various material spheres, among these latter our own planet Terra. In them, all learning, growing, expanding, evolving, manifesting forth outwards what we are intrinsically and naturally within our inmost center. This is the procedure of evolution, becoming or manifesting what we are latently within. For in the name of truth, what else can a man or woman, or any other being for that matter of that, become except that which lies in the evolving entity itself? After the passage of many aeons of evolution in this manner, we shall re-enter, mystically speaking, or re-become, or self-consciously recognize our kinship with the All, and thus find ourselves again in the bosom of the universal life, but no longer as unself-conscious God sparks, but as fully self-conscious gods. This thought of the spiritual unity of all beings is at the foundation, is in fact the basis of every great religion and philosophy of the past. Every great sage has taught that the human being has, indeed is, in the core of himself, a spark of the central fire of that bright intelligence which infills the universe, and that the pathway to unutterable wisdom and peace and bliss and love is the following of that still small pathway within, leading ever further inwards, upwards, until self is lost in the all-self, and the pilgrim becomes at one with the divine fire which vitalizes and infills and guides the universe. We see, therefore, the natural basis that ethics has in such thoughts as these, the basis that morals naturally have in right and noble living in high thinking. These are the teachings of the sages of old, and are the very basis of every world religion that exists, the very basis of every great philosophy, the very basis of the facts of science. The facts of nature, which are rooted in the fundamentals of the Great Mother, likewise repose on the same spiritual substratum of being. In the beginning of our evolutionary journey in our present universe, we entered this present universe as elementals therein, and we have grown through all the stages upwards until at present we are human beings, and we are still growing, still evolving, still pressing forwards, for never must we forget that evolution is bringing out what is within, unfolding the latent powers locked up within the deathless center, which every human is at the core of himself. Infinitude lies there, deathlessness lies there, and therefore the pathway of growth is endless and beginningless. The way by which to grow is to shed the personal in order to become the impersonal, to shed the limited in order to expand. How can the chick leave the egg without breaking its shell? How can the inner man expand without breaking the shell of the lower selfhood? How can the God within manifest itself until the imperfect, the small, the constricted, the personal, in other words, has been surpassed, overpassed, left behind, abandoned, cast aside? It is in impersonality that lies immortality. In personality lies death. Therefore, expand, grow, evolve, become what you are within. No unchanging principle in man. There is a deduction, a very important one, to be drawn from this, nor should we be frightened at it. All evolution is change. All change in evolution is growth, expansion. You cannot become something better than what you are now without leaving this present behind. Consequently, as this law applies as much to the spiritual and physical realms as it does to the physical and astral, we draw the following deduction. And I said that wrong. Consequently, as this law applies as much to the spiritual and psychical realms as it does to the physical and astral, we draw the following deductions. There is no immortally unchanging soul in man. There is no immortally changeable soul in man. Immortally changeable. Do you understand? Thank the gods that it is so. Because if there were a genuinely, immortally unchangeable soul in me, that soul could never grow because it could not change. I should be forever in crystallized imperfection, because if I changed in one atom, and by one iota, immortality would instantly vanish, because I should have become something else by the degree of that change for betterment. But evolution, which is change, is uninterrupted and continuous and has proceeded throughout eternity. Do you now understand the idea? That is the heart of the explanation of the teaching of the Lord Gautama, the Buddha, who was the very incarnation of love and wisdom on earth, because manifesting the powers of a divinity, his own inner God, his own inner Dhyani, as we Theosophists say, the celestial entity of which he was the human expression or vehicle. And Jesus, the Syrian sage and avatar, said exactly the same in substance when he taught, I and my Father are one. And on to the heart of the universe is harmony. If your instincts and your thoughts and your desires be earthwards, earthward will you go. For earthwards is your attraction. If your instincts and your will and your understanding and your aspirations are upwards towards the stars and the immortal suns, thither you will travel in the evolutionary course. These are facts. The same rule applies even in the common affairs of life. The things upon which a man sets his heart, he struggles for and gets them, and precisely the same rule holds man in nature's unerring balance of justice. In the pan of the balance into which you have thrown the strongest elements and affections of your character, will you be found yourself when you are weighed in life's balance. That is the meaning of the ancient Egyptian symbolic picture of the man's heart being weighed in the balance. Therefore, the great men, the seers and sages, philosophers, true religionists, Natural scientists have taught that the very nature of the heart of the universe is beauty, harmony, therefore order, law, love, and peace, and that the expression of these cosmic attributes throughout nature is the cause of the orderliness that the observant eye sees everywhere. They taught also that the disorderliness that one sees likewise in nature, the things that go wrong, the warped things, the things dying before their time, and human beings in especial, are merely the proof of the vast hierarchies of evolving and therefore imperfect intelligences in nature, which intelligences, collaborators as they are in the great universal work, produce imperfect results because they themselves are as yet imperfect. Therefore, did they say that the immortal gods in all their evolutionary grades, highest, intermediate, and low, are nevertheless not perfect, although incomparably more perfect than men. On such reasoning as this was the true polytheism of the ancients based. Every entity and everything in the universe is a learning thing. Every entity, therefore, is on its upward evolutionary way. The universe is divisible into numberless hosts of beings in all phases of evolutionary progress, endless hierarchies of beings and things and entities, graded in steps and stages, and this principle prevails in similar fashion on our earth. And on to now a section called the music of the spheres. Every phenomenon of growth is accompanied with a sound. There is indeed such a thing as the music of the spheres, a very real thing. Every motion of material substance is accompanied with a sound. That sound may be too great for our imperfect ears to sense or to take note of, or it may come within the limited gamut of sound that evolution has brought our auditory sense to understand or to take in. In the latter case, we are aware of the physical sound. In the former case, we are not, but the sound is there just the same. The musical harmonies throughout nature are going on all the time. Everything that moves sings as it moves, and all things are moving. Nothing is absolutely inert. Consequently, everything sings, and the stars in their majestic cyclical motions, and the planets in their orbits sing the song of the spheres, but our senses are not attuned to take it in. Therefore, we don't hear it. Shakespeare described this beautifully in a passage in his Merchant of Venice, Act 5, Scene 1, "There's not the smallest orb which thou beholdest, but in his motion like an angel sings, still queering to the young-eyed cherubims. Such harmony is in immortal souls, but whilst this muddy vesture of decay doth grossly close it in, we cannot hear it." Shakespeare in this passage was merely repeating the teachings of the ancient Greek Pythagoreans, which teachings had come down to his time through the writings of a few early Christian theologians, and mainly in the teachings of the pseudo-Dionysius called the Areopagite. The Pythagorean doctrine is our theosophical teaching also, and the matter is now becoming somewhat understood even by the ultra-modern scientific researchers to the effect that every material thing in movement produces, among other phenomena, sound. There is not only a music of the spheres, but there is music everywhere, and man's poor interpretive faculty attempts to seize some of the celestial harmonies, and the result is that we have what we call human music, beautiful in its way indeed, but oh, how imperfect as compared with nature's natural harmonies. The next time when you pass a fellow human being on the street, no longer look upon him as an imperfect fellow. No longer let your eyes rest upon him as a being of mere flesh and blood and bones, but remember that you have just passed an embodied God in his higher being, full of mysteries, so that his very body is singing a hymn, had you the ears to hear it. And had you this actual inner spiritual ear, you could hear the music of the spheres, for, in solemn truth, every sphere that runs its course in the abysmal depths of space sings a song as it passes along. Having this power, you can hear the grass grow. Every little atom is attuned to a musical note. It is in constant movement and constant vibration at speeds which are incomprehensible to the ordinary brain mind of man, and each such speed has its own numerical quantity, in other words, its own numerical note or sound, and therefore sings that note, so that had you this spiritual clairaudience, the life surrounding you would be one grand sweet song, and you yourself would sing a song. Your very body would be, as it were, a symphonic orchestra, singing some magnificent, incomprehensible, musical symphonic composition. The growth of a flower, for instance, would be like a changing melody running along from day to day. All right, so that was chapters 3 and 4. We're going to leave it there and just take little bite-sized chunks of this as we go. I'm going to stop it, and we'll do another chapter, a couple chapters tomorrow. All right, have a good one.